You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast, hosted by Zach Bechtold and Matt Franks. We hope you enjoyed today's podcast and check us out online at beardedtheologians.com. You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast, hosted by Matt Franks
and Zach Bechtold. And today we have a very special guest with us, our friend, the Reverend Chrisie Reeves-Pendergrass. She's going to come on, and she's got some really cool things going on and coming up. And we want to welcome you on, Chrisie. Thank you for being on with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
really excited to be here.
Wonderful. Well, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what you're doing?
I am the solo pastor at Gilbert United Methodist Church in Gilbert, South Carolina, which is just outside of Columbia. And I am a clergy couple. So I walk that unique road of being pastor and pastor's wife. I'm not really certain if I'm good at either, but we try. And I would say I'm a fierce advocate for women's issues, particularly domestic violence and sexual assault, because I have experiences in those things, both personal, like as a person and as a pastor. And I am looking at starting my own podcast with my friend Adam Baker, dealing with the intersection between theology and mental health. So look forward to that in the coming months. We're going to be talking about issues in mental health and where the church is good and where the church is maybe not so great at it. So.
And that's such a big deal, because I know there's such a huge stigma within the church in regards to mental health. And I think that's a hard thing, like to really be open and honest about it, talking about how therapy is actually a healthy thing and stuff like that, where it's been demonized in some circles of Christianity. And just pray it out, it'll get better. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that.
It's a faith issue and not
Yeah. And so I'm glad that you're willing to shed light in that corner. What are some things like that you're planning on, some things you're planning on talking about in regards to this podcast?
Well, I think we know a lot of really great people who have written books. So we're going to look at have conversations with people who are advocates for it. And Adam was a counselor first, and I have a degree in psychology. So I think we bring a kind of unique perspective of that. But we want to just talk to people mostly about where they find that that their faith and their mental health can be, where kind of interlocks as to making them a healthier whole person, both as a spiritual person and as just an operating person in the world. So I think we want to talk to professors, church leaders, pastors that also are dealing with mental health issues, and kind of breaking down that stigma that if you have this, you can't be a person of faith, because here are people that are leading in faith-based places who also deal with these issues.
Right. And that's such an important conversation, because as pastors, not only do we deal with our own issues, right? Our own spiritual and our own mental
issues?
I know, right? Exactly. And that's what it is. Like, what issues? You work one day a week. Come on, right?
One day, maybe 4 hours.
Right, exactly. You preach for 25 minutes. No, but not only are we having to deal with that, but the pastoral care aspect of it, and meeting with people and hearing their stories, sometimes being first responders, and hospital visits, and just in the crisis of people's lives, being that person that those folks come to. That's a heavy burden to carry.
Yes.
In ways, it very much weighs heavily on someone's heart and soul and mind, and it's not that. And don't hear me say it's not what we want to do. That's exactly who we want to do and what we want to be, right? But we have to have something as pastors, a place to go, just as much as everybody else does. And so to open up that conversation is huge.
Well, and I think most people don't think about how hard it is to hold that confidentiality piece, right, too, because how do you decompress these things that aren't yours to share, that someone shared to you in the place of God? Right. So what do you do with that when you're carrying not only your own crap, but you're carrying other people's, because that's your job. So how do you function in that when you can't say a lot of it? And that's where a therapist, I think, can be really great, because they are bound by that confidentiality also.
Right.
So you have a space where you can share and talk. Once again, I mean, just having someone who holds your confidentiality, I think it can be really, for me, it gives me peace of mind.
Well, I think that's the key. I think far too often, and this is a conversation my wife and I have on a consistent basis, she's like, so what's going on? Like, I can't tell you.
Yeah.
There are things that I would love to tell you, but I don't want to tell you because I don't want you to look at this person in a different light than what I have,
Absolutely. And I think as a clergy couple,
oh God, I couldn't imagine what it would be like to be a clergy couple.
Yeah, having to.
It's like, that just sounds
Wes
like.
and I joke that there are a lot of secrets in our marriage. And that's good, because there are secrets to keep, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I know that it's always hard to have that like you'd love to be able to go home and just, when someone says, how's your day? And you're like, man, I would love to tell you how, like, what I'm processing right now, but I can't tell you a single thing. And so that's always hard. And so, I think that, I would be intrigued. I really need to look at that Duke study where they looked at pastoral health and, the correlation between our obesity and all that other, health issues that we deal is because we take that internally. And so that's not a healthy thing to take it internally and not let it out and let it, go do healthy things, pastoral care, self-care. If we don't self-care, man, I've just seen too many people burn out because of lack of self-care.
I don't think it's just burnout that I think we have to worry about. I think it does slowly become like a sin issue almost, right? Like, you're carrying all this and you just can't. And I think so many times we find ourselves trying to cope with that in other ways that are just really not healthy. Like at clergy orders, we were dealing with a couple of months ago. We actually, they bought a subscription to something where we answered on our, like, confidentially on our phones, and it put like a word cloud up of what our responses were, which I thought was really great. And one of them was, what kind of things what vices do you struggle with? And the big ones were food, which I thought was really insightful. Food, pornography was huge. And the other was like not being great with money. So it became like the mental health aspect came down into these really destructive health patterns inside of us pastors. And I think that it's morally imperative that we take care of that, because I think it does affect our own heart. And then that damages our witness, our ability to sit and be with people, our marriages, our lives, like it just starts to eat at us, because we can't hold it all.
Right. Well, and I think that's where, even your podcast is a great idea. It will be a great, I think, tool and conversation, at least for people to listen to understand that, like, we as pastors, like, there's a reason why we need a day off. It's not, it's not so we can go and, go have a whole bunch of fun, or, it's so we can, really, if we do it right, we can decompress from the stresses of the work week. And there's a reason why going to those clergy events is so important, not just so that way we can learn something, but so we can, if it's a good event and it does some spiritual things that will spiritually fill you. I think that those are key factors in helping us be healthier clergy. And I can't tell you how many times people don't do those things that I know that are near and dear to my heart. And I'm like, man, you really need to go to these things. This will be really good for you.
Well, and we've lost Sabbath to day off. Like we've conflated the two, and they're not the same. They're just not. Right. I think one of the most countercultural things we can do as Christians is to Sabbath and rest. Right. God did this for a reason. It wasn't because God was tired. It was because God knew we would be.
Right. Well, and there's an intentionality behind a Sabbath as opposed to a day off, right? Because a day off, there's still that.
I do my laundry, yes. Right. I do puzzles with my son, and that's good. Those are all things I need to do, but it's not the same thing as being.
It's not the same thing, right? And even so here in our conference, there's been the intentional push of, hey, we know many of you are serving multiple point charges. You're running. Some of you are bivocational, and a lot of our lay pastors, and then our elders and local pastors are, again, serving 2-3 churches, 4 churches in some places. And the intentional push is, we know that's hard to take time off from. We know that's hard to get your Sabbath in, but you have you have your vacation, right? You have your vacation time, but you also, Red Book Discipline, have built-in sabbatical time. If you take anything, you will take your sabbatical time. We will be checking. And so it's the intentional push from the bishop to say, I want you to take care of yourselves. This is important. And that goes a long way when your leadership speaks up and says,
Yes.
I hear you, I see you, here are my expectations, and it's to rest. I want you to be the best pastors that you can be, and lead in ways. And if you're tired and burnt out and just weighed down by life, you can't do that. And so here's my expectation: rest. And if this 2 weeks of this sabbatical is all you rest, that's what you have to do that. And if you can get the rest in, wonderful. But I understand.
I also think that it's really important for us to make space with clergy to say, crap happens in your life too. And you have to take care of your crap. I've known pastors who lost a parent and immediately went back to work. Right. And like, you're not even in that space to do that. How can you, so I think making it okay and kind of like changing the structure where it's all right for us to say, I just need a little bit of space so that I can be a person and heal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's, I think the struggle though is how much the church has become so institutionalized in regards to, my gosh, you got to work your 40 hours. And we really know that you're working more than 40 hours, but by gosh, you better.
I would love to work 40.
Yeah, 40 would be,
sounds like a dream.
That's a pipe dream, and I'm, this week alone, I've had to be at the church at least until 9:00 every night this week for various things. And I hate those years are so draining. And so what I did last week, I wasn't preaching last week, so I was able to, I had the luxury of, I actually did really do 40 hours. And it was kind of like, wow, so this is what that feels like.
I really rested and beautiful.
It actually felt good to get some rest.
Your hair was probably shinier,
Well, the scalp was definitely a little bit, felt a little bit better. I do not have much hair. But, yeah, the glare would just kill you.
He turtle waxed it last week.
Yeah, I had the time to take the towel. Like this.
I like how in the Bearded Theologians there's more hair on your face than there is on your head.
It's very intentional. Here on the podcast.
Are you over?
Yeah, so I think that those healthy things, and I think the biggest thing, and this is Zach and I have talked about this a little bit. We've got to laugh.
Yeah.
I think we take ourselves too seriously.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many times I walked into a clergy room and it's like, man, these guys and gals are so puckered, they're going to explode. And it's like, I want to tell a joke. And if I tell a joke, they're going to think I'm not taking this seriously. And I'm like, comedy actually is one of the best truth-telling things that we can have.
Yes.
And I'm really good at making fun of something, but in a truthful way. And just I have that gift, and I'm I really believe that this humor, we've lost the holy humor of life, and we're too afraid to crack a joke. And I've had this is the first church I've had where I've had the comment, you need to be more serious in your sermons. And I'm like, no. I feel like my approach is my way. It's who I am. It's my voice. It's the voice that God has given me. And I will tell at least 1 to 2 jokes, not necessarily intentional dad jokes, but just, hey, this is.
Wait, you only tell 2? Oops.
Well, 2 intentional. That doesn't mean that other things aren't funny.
Got it. That makes me feel better.
But the intentional, I've got my 2 this week. I'm feel good, and I know there's others. But and I think that's it. We have to, even in our congregations, have an atmosphere of laughter, because I think far too
Have you
often.
ever hung out with hospice nurses? They are the darkest, funniest people you've ever met.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, they joke about things. You're like, can you say that?
Right.
Dying.
Well,
Why?
and-
Because this is how they're coping. Why can't we do that? Because we sit in those same spaces.
Well, I think that's what's been funny for Zach and I. So Zach and I, we hang out with these guys on Xbox. We play Xbox with these guys, and like they're shocked at like how hilarious we can. Like they're like, you guys can talk about that. Like that's, you're okay with.
I literally said to my secretary yesterday morning, I said, if I wasn't a pastor, I think I'd be a stand-up comic.
Oh, without a doubt.
So isn't that the dream, right?
Even that different.
Right. So pastors either want to be comedians or rock stars, right? And comedians want to be rock stars, and rock stars want to be comedians. We just get the best of both worlds.
Because I kind of feel like I'm all of those things.
Right. That's exactly right.
Well,
I got the guitar sitting back here that I can't play, but I have it because it makes me look cool, right? It's the rock star.
Dude, I have a bass, a guitar, and a djembe in a corner that haven't been moved since I moved here last year. So that just shows you what I think about every day. And I think that's the key, is that, with mental health, it is about creating a space of safety, and a safe, a place where we can say, acknowledge our brokenness. And I really believe within the church, we have failed to do that. And I think that that's led to some of the other problems that we have. We could, that's just a whole other podcast that we could talk about that. But I thank you for the work that you're doing on that, because I think it's huge. I really do believe that that's the thing that we've been talking around here is how can I'm in one of the poorest communities in Oklahoma. So that, that puts it even in the upper echelon of within the United States. And so the thing that I've been talking about is how can we look at mental health? Like who can we partner with to offer some things through the church to say, hey, your addiction or, your grief or, those things like, and it's so, I think it's so new that people don't know how to respond to it. Especially in our kind of Southern Baptist culture that we have here in this town, it's gonna be a little rough to get it going. But I really feel like if we can hone some space for mental health in our congregation, we're going to be able to help some people that wouldn't have had help otherwise. And I'm really hoping that we can get that off the ground, because I think mental health is so key. And how we're going to really get healing in this world is to address those issues and just acknowledge it. I mean, not even just addressing it, just acknowledging it is huge.
Which feels really sad to me that we have to, because I mean, if you look in scripture, there's so many mental health issues, like it abounds, and Jesus heals, right, like demons, and there's a lot of conversation about whether or not these are demons or is this some sort of mental illness, right? Like the man with the pigs, right? Like is that schizophrenia? I mean, it could be all kinds of things, and so he spoke into that, and so it seems really strange to me that we don't.
Well,
when that's
go ahead.
What Jesus would do,
right. Well, and that's the thing that our culture has done, right? Is not even the culture; it's the church. Let's blame the church here for a minute. That we've looked at depression and anxiety and other mental health issues, right? Whether it's schizophrenia or whatever, right? We've looked at those things and said, "Oh, it's a faith issue." If you just pray more, you're not living right. We tell people.
Yes.
And when I say we, I don't mean anybody sitting in this room.
Are you confessing here, Zach?
I am. But we've looked at people and said, no, your depression and anxiety, your mental state is all because of you and your lack of faith. And the church has told people that for far, far too long.
Which is really arrogant.
Oh my God,
also.
Right?
Well, I mean, it's arrogant to say that these things could even be controlled by them. It's like this arrogance of humanity that we're taking on and putting on this person.
Right.
Right.
Well,
I think it's so important because, so I have a history with sexual assault, and I've had people come into my office that have that experience, and I have to separate my experience from theirs. It's not fair to them. This is their space, not mine.
Right.
But if I hadn't taken that space for myself, it would be impossible for you to separate. And to acknowledge that we have these pains and we have these things also. Like it's the same thing if someone comes in who's grieving and we've just lost someone close to us. How can we separate that and not ultimately make it about us?
Right. Right. It's about finding that place of empathy, right? And then being
Yes.
able to co-create in that space and say, God loves you. I hear you. Now let's go. What do you, and just hear that person truly hear them instead of listening to respond or, oh, here's how I've dealt with it, right? It's just that listening, which we're really, really bad about, right? Because we're like,
Yeah.
oh, I've experienced that. Let me unpack my part, right? Instead of just going, oh, I hear you, which is what most people need at the end of the day. It's just somebody to hear them.
And I think we do that somewhat because we want to be heard.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely we do.
Which I think is why a therapist, like, I love that I go to see a therapist once or twice a month, depending on,
right,
my schedule and what's going on in my life, because that is a space where someone just hears me.
Right.
And
absolutely.
I need that too. I want to be heard and understood and known.
Yeah. That was something that I did with this.
Because I'm paying them.
Right, exactly. But that was something that I did when I moved into this appointment for the couple of months before and after I moved. Was some really deep therapy to heal and get into the right space or any kind of healthy space to come and lead the churches that I was coming to, because it was rough. And had I not had that, I don't know if I'd be sitting here or at least able to have this kind of conversation in any kind of healthy way.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, we get so beaten up in our congregations. The consistency of just really being beat on, and some of it's intentional, some of it's not intentional, and that's always hard to wrestle with and to deal with. And we do need as clergy to create that space. And I think if we're honest about it with our congregation and saying, hey, I've got a team of therapists because you all drive me crazy. I mean, and
I want to quit you too.
Yeah. I want to say that you're going to hell too. So, I think those conversations that we have, those honest conversations, not only just from the pulpit, but from just, when you have those one-on-ones with people and they like, do you think I'm crazy because I'm going to counseling? Like, no, dude, like,
no, please go.
I go once or twice a month or, 4 or 5 times a week because I need it, like.
Your EAP pays for at least 8 visits.
That's right.
That's for a reason, buddy. Because you're a person.
And I think that's key. And I'm glad that you're willing to shine a light in that in this podcast. And we'd be glad to, once you guys get that up and going, send us a little note and we'll be glad to share that and reshare this interview with people so that way they can hear this conversation to maybe go and listen to you all's conversation, because I think you guys are going to do some really great things. Because
absolutely, I
really do believe that it's been one of the worst things that we've ever done for humanity is to not have honest conversation about this, but we're willing to talk about other things. We get super serious about those stupid coffee mugs that we want to print on, but when it comes to mental health, like, oh no, I'm gonna talk about it.
That's right.
And you all know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Like, my gosh, that carpet's got to be red. I don't care what you say, Pastor, that carpet's got to be red. But
I was in a church growing up, which was completely nameless, and my dad was the pastor, and so we were sitting in a meeting, and we decided we needed to recarpet the sanctuary. 13 months of a carpet committee. 13 months to choose a different shade of red. And then what did they say the first week? Pastor, can we use white grape juice so it doesn't stain the carpet?
Of course.
No, we can't. I understood they had spent 13 months. There was a lot of emotional, time and energy put into this. And I think they probably looked back and thought they were silly too. But yeah, I mean, we get so caught up in the institution. My husband calls it castle maintaining instead of kingdom building.
All right.
I just call it coffee cup conversations, because I sat in a 14-hour meeting just talking about a coffee cup. And we still never made a decision about said coffee cup.
Yeah. And it's hard because we're called to love these people,
right.
ourselves.
Are we called or forced? No, I would say called. I would really say called, because I mean, there's been times where I'm, like, man, I get to do this. This is fun.
Yes.
Then
Yes,
there are days-
absolutely.
Then there are days where I'm like, I have to do this. This is bigger than
But
me.
I think it's important for us to acknowledge that they feel that way too.
Mhm.
Like that I really love my pastor. I have to really pray to love my pastor. Right?
Well, and my joke is I'll stay as long as you all will have me.
Yeah.
Because I know the moment that they don't want me around, I can say, hey, I need to move, or call other friends and say, hey, do you got some openings? Because I could use a change.
I feel really blessed to be. I'm in a congregation that is really wonderful and healthy.
This has been, even though this has been a tough. They're dealing with having a younger pastor, so that's something they're grieving on. They're still grieving their pastor, but I also found it to have been one of the healthier congregations I've worked in the sense of, you need to go spend time with your family. I'm like, do I?
Yes.
Like, or can I just go hang out with my friends? Yeah. Like it's been a while since I've had that in most of the congregations I've served. I've been thankful that I've had that in some way, shape, or form. And I would hope that we all get to experience that somewhere along our ministries. And so, once you get the links and stuff to where you guys are posting all that stuff, we'd be glad to share that. So once we get all that, do you have a name for your podcast?
Yeah, I'm not even I'm going to say without him. I think we're going to call it Instructions for Living a Life.
Okay.
Based off Mary Oliver. But we're really excited. We have music.
Nice.
We wish you the best in your podcasting ventures, and we'd love to have you back on once you get it going, and you can kind of share with us what's going on. And that invitation's open, or if you guys want to write a blog post, we'd be glad to share that.
Cool.
And so
Thank you.
You'll know that the invitation is open, and we want to encourage our listeners to go on our website at beardedtheologians.com and check out all the gifts and stuff that we have that you can buy for, Father's Day is approaching, and it would be a good thing to buy your father a coffee mug or a
Going back to coffee mugs.
Going back to coffee mugs.
Yeah. But we actually have ours made.
We have really great ones.
Oh, okay.
we have several styles of coffee mugs, so no shame in our game. But we also have some other stuff through Zazzle, and if you need a good Father's Day gift, it's a good little gift for your father or mother, or anything else that you need to buy a gift for.
But you got an open invitation to come back on anytime.
Thank you.
And talk about the work that you all are doing with the podcast and everything else that you do. But again, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And for everybody else out there listening, check out beardedtheologians.com for all of our past podcast and blog links, as well as you can go on and buy stuff and help support the podcast. And for the Bearded Theologians, I'm Zach Bechtold.
And I'm Matt Franks.
Thanks for checking us out.
We hope you've enjoyed the conversations that we've had today on the Bearded Theologians Beardcast, and we'd encourage you to continue those conversations online at beardedtheologians.com or on our Facebook page. We also hope that you pick up a couple of coffee mugs to satisfy your coffee mug collection. Have a good day.